Welcome to episode 3 of the design series, creating a custom computer case for a NAS with SOLIDWORKS xDesign. In this series, we're building a fully functional NAS, network attached storage, around existing PC components. And if you haven't caught up yet, you'll find links to previous episodes in the description below. In the last episode, we designed the basic structure of the case, but the parts don't quite fit together yet. So in this episode, we'll design fittings to ensure the parts connect seamlessly. We'll add markings to similar parts to make assembly easier. Once the component layout is finalized, I'll remove external references to make sure everything is fixed and ready for 3D printing. Finally, we'll wrap up with some housekeeping to tidy up the assembly for a clean, polished design. So let's start with vertical bar. On this face, I make a sketch offset of section boundaries to make a boss that will fit into cross and corner parts we designed earlier. Offset value is 3.1 millimeters. We will see later that was probably one of the few accurate values I added to my structure. Then I add a chamfer so parts will be easier to fit together. I add a mirror to leverage first boss. Then I create a V-shaped mark to it to make it easily recognizable during assembly. It's a mistake-proofing design feature. Now I will create holes on corner part. To do that, I follow the same idea of an offset of a face so sketch stays in the middle. I add a chamfer to ease assembly and see how easy this is to create a chamfer on all relevant edges. So let's do the same for cross parts. The only difference will be there are two different shapes for bosses. First shape contains the chamfer, so we do exactly the same than the corners, and I apply a chamfer and a mirror. For the middle bosses, I leverage a rectangular offset and I add a chamfer for assembly. Look which plane I take for the mirror. It's just a bisector plane defined from the two perpendicular faces. I hide the cross part to see which part I still need to design. So I take the long transversal one. Nothing new here, I add 3.1 millimeters for the offset. This value is the right one, but there is little chance it will fit into cross part that has the same value. I will realize that far too late. For the rest, it's a boss with a chamfer and a mirror. With a section view, I see that front bars need bosses, so I start with top bar. Here you see in details how I define the offset sketch when outside shape is not the simple shape I need. I take references in the corners, cut with the chamfer edge and offset from there with 3.1 millimeters. Of course, I finish with a boss, a chamfer and a mirror. For this part, I add a H-shaped mark to indicate this is the horizontal part. It will be helpful during assembly phase. Now I do the exact same thing for middle bar, adding some relationships on the fly to keep outer sketch fixed on geometry. Here, of course, I add 3.1 millimeter offset for the boss, then the chamfer, then the mirror. Now, with section views, I can check in all intersections that all parts have a hole and boss, so the fittings are done and I can move to one of the most important steps of the design, fixing dimensions and removing external references. It might seem trivial, but it's absolutely not. This is what will make my assembly robust, and that will keep dimensions stable in case I make a mistake. I never do, but who knows. First, I defined minimum clearance I need around the motherboard, and that changes my structure. I already defined width for hard drives, so this dimension is okay. So to do that, I change end conditions of my extrusions and define width of the case with bar length. Of course, xDesign detects an error with this red color until all bars have the same length. This is good news. It means error detection works. Then I fix offset references so bars don't depend on corner and cross parts. Look how easy this is with Error and Warning Manager. It helps finding the right action in a few clicks. This is just a matter of deleting references and adding new relationships to the part itself. Now I change length of middle bar to remove the last problem, and obviously this was not the last one. An offset seems to have flipped for this boss, so to correct the issue, I add a minus in the value, and problem is solved. Of course, now front face is okay. I do the same for the side with bar lengths of 225 millimeters, so they barely fit into my 3D printer with an overall length of 255 millimeters with bosses. Then I take care of the vertical bars. You remember I told you earlier, external references are not enough to fully define part positions. This is even more important when you remove these external references. So I start with extrusion end conditions and affix the value. Then I add mates to the rest of the structure, and I do that for all vertical bars and parts that may have lost their references, like this corner here. Once all mates are added, I also realize there is an issue with the V mark, because now the part is fully defined from standard coordinate system and not the rest of the parts. So here, V sketch has moved. This is the problem when you don't define enough. So I will correct this issue with some simple dimensions and rebuild the assembly. Everything looks fine now, no error in feature tree. I still try to move parts just in case, but that's fine, assembly's clean now. So for structural parts, this is now printing time. I also need to put inserts in place, and that's a long, very long work. It needs to be done anyway.
A few moments later.
Now I can start building some parts of my NAS, and I can already realize some parts need to be filed down to fit together properly. I even break a cross part when I assemble it. That's not good. I'm missing a couple of parts, in particular the bars behind the motherboard, but this will be for another time. Before that, in the next episode, we will build something to secure hard drives, the key elements of a large storage system like this NAS. As always, you can check SOLIDWORKS for Maker's website for more information on SOLIDWORKS xDesign and subscribe for a very cheap price. This concludes our episode today. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode.